My mother sobbed on the phone, telling me her cancer treatments were costing another $10,000 this month. I immediately transferred my entire paycheck, leaving myself with barely enough money for rent. I worked 80 hours a week, destroying my health to keep her alive. But yesterday I came home early and saw my younger brother parking a brand new $80,000 sports car in our driveway. He laughed as my mother handed him the keys, completely healthy. For 3 years, I believed my mother was fighting a terminal illness. Every single dollar I earned went straight into her medical account, managed by my younger brother Kevin. I lived in a tiny, moldy basement apartment and skipped meals just to make sure she could afford her chemotherapy. My family constantly told me that my sacrifices were the only thing keeping her alive. I felt a massive burden of guilt, working myself to absolute exhaustion. The illusion shattered when I decided to visit my parents' house unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon. As I walked up the driveway, I heard loud, cheerful music playing from the backyard. I peered through the wooden fence and saw my mother dancing by the pool, holding a glass of expensive wine. She looked incredibly energetic and healthy. There were no signs of illness, no hair loss, and absolutely no medical equipment anywhere in sight. Then, a sleek metallic blue sports car pulled up. My brother Kevin stepped out, wearing designer clothes and a gold watch. My mother ran to him, hugging him tightly and screaming with joy. She said, "Do you like your new ride, sweetie? Your older brother's hard work paid for it." I stood frozen in the shadows, my blood turning to ice. The money I thought was saving my mother's life was actually funding Kevin's luxury lifestyle. I quietly backed away and walked back to my car, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I didn't scream or make a scene. I remembered the code. Do not cry, do not argue, just win. I was a senior financial auditor at a top firm. I knew exactly how to track money and expose fraud. Instead of confronting them immediately with anger, I decided to play the quiet, naive son while I built an airtight legal trap to destroy them. The next morning, I began my investigation by requesting the official medical invoices from the private clinic where my mother was supposedly receiving her chemotherapy. I called their billing department, pretending to be her legal representative. The receptionist sounded extremely confused when I gave her my mother's name. She checked the system twice and told me they had absolutely no patient under that name in their database. My heart sank, but my resolve grew stronger. I looked closer at the PDF invoices Kevin had emailed me over the past 2 years. Using my digital forensic software, I analyzed the metadata of the files. I discovered that the invoices were created on a free online template editor using a fake hospital logo. The digital stamps and signatures of the doctors were clumsy copy-paste images. The entire medical history was a scam. I tracked the bank transfers I had made to the medical trust account over the last 3 years. The total came to over $240,000. To my absolute horror, the money was never sent to any hospital. It was instantly routed to a private checking account owned by Kevin. From there, the funds were spent on luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, designer shopping sprees, and the down payment for his car. The next day, my mother called me again, her voice instantly dropping into a weak, coughing whisper. She claimed she needed another $15,000 for an emergency surgery. She said, "Max, the doctors say if I don't get this surgery next week, I might not make it. Please, you are my only hope." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice completely calm, and replied, "Of course, Mom. I will arrange the funds for you." Instead of sending the cash, I used my access to hire Marcus, a highly rated private investigator who specialized in insurance fraud. I instructed him to follow my mother and Kevin for a week and document their daily activities. Marcus went to work immediately, capturing high-definition video of my mother shopping at luxury boutiques, dining at expensive steakhouses, and driving Kevin's sports car around the city. Marcus also discovered that Kevin was bragging to his friends at local bars about his unlimited cash source. He recorded Kevin saying, "My stupid brother works 80 hours a week so I can live like a king. He actually believes our mom has cancer. He is the biggest idiot I've ever met." Hearing those words made something inside me snap. Any remaining drop of family loyalty was officially gone. I was ready to strike. I compiled all the evidence into a massive professional folder. It contained the fake hospital invoices, the bank statement analysis proving the money went directly to Kevin, the private investigator's surveillance videos, and the audio recording of Kevin bragging, I walked straight into the local police headquarters and met with a detective from the white-collar crime division, presenting the entire case. The detective was absolutely disgusted by the sheer cruelty of the scam. He explained that fabricating medical bills and stealing over $200,000 through fraudulent misrepresentation was a severe Class B felony. He officially recorded my statement and confirmed they had more than enough evidence to secure immediate arrest warrants for both my mother and my younger brother Kevin for grand larceny. While the police were finalizing the legal paperwork, I decided to play my hand. I logged into the joint bank account my mother had forced me to set up for her emergencies. Using my legal rights as the primary account holder, I instantly withdrew the remaining $70,000 they had planned to spend on Kevin's next luxury trip. I transferred the entire amount to a private, secure account in my name. An hour later, my phone exploded with frantic calls from Kevin. When I finally answered, he was screaming hysterically. He yelled, "What did you do with the money, you idiot? The car payment is due today and the account is empty. Put the money back right now or I will tell Mom you want her to die." I listened to his pathetic rage with a cold smile, recording every single second of the call as further evidence. I replied in a calm, monotonous voice. "The bank is running a routine security audit on the account, Kevin. It should be resolved soon." He believed my lie, hanging up after calling me a useless fool. 2 days later, the trap snapped shut. My mother and Kevin were having lunch at a fancy outdoor cafe, paid for with my stolen money, when 3 police cruisers pulled up to the curb with their sirens blaring. 2 detectives walked up to their table and ordered them to stand up. My mother immediately tried to play the victim, clutching her chest and claiming she was a terminally ill cancer patient who couldn't be touched. The detective calmly pulled out the arrest warrant and said, "Ma'am, we have your complete medical records. You are under arrest for grand larceny and insurance fraud." The cafe fell completely silent. Kevin tried to run toward his sports car, but another officer slammed him against the hood, handcuffing him tightly. He screamed at the top of his lungs, crying for our mother to help him. They were both loaded into the back of separate police cars and driven to the county jail. The neighbors watched in absolute shock as the local Golden family was paraded in handcuffs for everyone to see their true shame. My father, who was completely oblivious to the scam because he lived in his own world of denial, called me in a state of hysterical panic. He sobbed, "Max, you have to do something. Your mother and brother are in jail. The police say they stole from you, but it must be a mistake. Please tell them to drop the charges." I told him cold and flat, "There is no mistake, Dad. They stole my life and now they will pay." I refused to pay their bail, which the judge set at a massive $50,000 each. My real estate attorney immediately filed a civil lawsuit against my mother and Kevin to recover the stolen $240,000. Since they had used the stolen funds to buy Kevin's sports car and renovate my parents' suburban home, the court granted an emergency lien, freezing all of their physical assets. Within 48 hours, my extended family found out about the lawsuits and the jail time. My phone was flooded with incredibly hateful messages from uncles, aunts, and cousins. They called me an ungrateful, heartless monster for putting my own mother behind bars. They kept repeating that family is sacred and that money shouldn't destroy blood bonds. I ignored their texts, focusing on the legal battle. I decided to put an end to their hypocrisy. I uploaded the private investigator's surveillance videos, the fake invoices, and the audio file of Kevin bragging to a public Google Drive folder. I sent the link directly to the family group chat with a simple message. "This is the family you are defending. Anyone who sends me another hateful text will be sued for harassment." The chat went completely dead. My mother used her one phone call from the county jail to leave a desperate, sobbing voicemail. She completely changed her tone, begging for my mercy. She cried, "Max, my sweet boy, I only did it because Kevin was in trouble with dangerous people. I wanted to protect him. Please forgive your mother. I love you so much." It was a disgusting attempt to manipulate me, but I felt absolutely nothing but cold resolve. I forwarded that voicemail directly to the prosecuting attorney as further evidence of her confession. Meanwhile, the court-ordered civil investigation revealed that my mother and Kevin had also managed to forge my signature to open 3 high-interest credit cards under my name. They had run up a debt of $40,000, spending it on designer shoes, expensive watches, and luxury spa treatments. This discovery added federal identity theft and mail fraud to their growing list of criminal charges. The prosecutor was thrilled with the new evidence, realizing this was an airtight case of systematic, long-term financial and familial abuse. He informed my lawyer that the state would not offer any plea deals. My mother and Kevin were facing a minimum of 7 years in a federal penitentiary. With their assets frozen and the trial approaching, my father finally woke up to the reality of the situation. He visited my apartment, looking absolutely broken and humiliated. He sat on my couch and confessed that my mother had been draining his own retirement account for years to fund Kevin's gambling habits. He looked into my eyes, apologized for being blind to the favoritism, and wept bitterly. I felt bad for my father, but I remained firm in my pursuit of total justice. I told him he needed to separate himself from them legally if he wanted to survive. Taking my advice, my father officially filed for divorce after 30 years of marriage, refusing to let my mother's criminal actions drag him into bankruptcy. He realized she had spent her life enabling Kevin's greed at the expense of everyone else. The day of the trial finally arrived 3 months later. My mother and Kevin stood before the judge in orange jumpsuits, looking pale, thin, and completely stripped of their former arrogance. Their expensive attorney tried to argue for probation, claiming it was a tragic family misunderstanding caused by emotional distress. He begged the court for leniency, pointing to my mother's age and clean record. But the prosecutor was completely ruthless. He played the surveillance footage of my mother dancing by the pool, shopping at Gucci, and laughing while driving the sports car. The judge watched in stunned silence as the fake medical invoices were displayed next to the official clinic letters confirming they had never treated her. The absolute coldness of their betrayal was exposed for everyone to see. When it was my turn, I stood up and read my victim impact statement. I detailed the 80-hour work weeks, the moldy basement, and the terrifying fear of losing my mother, all while they laughed and spent my savings on luxury. I looked directly into my mother's cold, angry eyes and said, "I have no mother. I have no brother. I only have justice." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The judge did not show them a single shred of mercy. My mother was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for grand larceny, forgery, and identity theft. Because Kevin had actively orchestrated the fake invoice scheme and spent the majority of the stolen funds, he received a much harsher sentence of 8 years in a maximum security facility. They were led away in chains, crying and screaming my name. Following the criminal conviction, the civil court ordered the immediate liquidation of all their frozen assets. The court awarded me the title of Kevin's $80,000 sports car, along with 50% ownership of my parents' suburban home to compensate for my stolen savings. I immediately sold the sports car and used the money to pay off the fraudulent credit cards they opened in my name. Just when I thought the nightmare was finally over, a new threat emerged from the dark. Kevin had gotten into heavy debt with some local underground bookmakers and loan sharks before his arrest. When they realized Kevin was in prison and broke, they turned their attention to me. They decided that since I was the wealthy older brother who took over the assets, I was now responsible for his unpaid gambling debts. One evening, as I was leaving my corporate office late at night, 2 men in leather jackets blocked my path in the parking lot. One of them pulled out a heavy metal pipe and tapped it against the hood of my car. He sneered, "Your brother Kevin owes our boss $50,000, Max. We know where you live and we know where your father lives. You are going to pay us back, or things will get very ugly." I remained completely calm, looking them straight in the eyes. I pointed to the small, blinking blue LED light on my car's windshield. I said, "You are standing in front of a customized IT security vehicle. My front and rear dash cams are streaming this conversation in 4K resolution to a secure cloud server, and the police have already been notified of your license plate. I suggest you walk away now." The men looked at the camera, their expressions turning from arrogant to terrified. The leader cursed under his breath and kicked my tire before they ran back to their vehicle and sped out of the parking garage. I didn't wait for them to make another move. I immediately drove to the police station and handed the high-definition footage of the threat and their license plate directly to the detectives. But I knew the police would move too slowly to protect my father and me from a desperate criminal syndicate. I decided to use my IT security and financial auditing skills to go on the offensive. I wanted to completely dismantle their illegal gambling ring from the inside out, making sure they could never threaten us again. I locked myself in my office and began tracing their digital and financial footprint. Using the license plate and the name Vincent that the private investigator had uncovered, I located the shell companies they used to launder their illegal gambling profits. I found a local car wash and a bar that were generating millions of dollars in untraceable cash. I ran a deep digital audit on their financial records, uncovering a massive tax evasion and illegal money laundering operation. I compiled a massive, detailed folder containing all of Vincent's secret bank accounts, transaction logs, and the names of his corrupt associates. I bypassed the local police, who were often slow and easily bribed, and sent the entire file directly to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division and the Federal Task Force. The federal agents were thrilled with my report, as Vincent had been on their radar. While the federal agents were quietly building their case, Vincent decided to make a desperate move. He sent 3 of his men to my father's new apartment late at night to intimidate him. They started kicking the door and screaming threats, trying to force him to call me and demand the money. They had no idea that I had installed a high-tech smart security system in my father's apartment just 2 days prior. I watched the entire confrontation live from my phone's security application. I instantly activated the high-decibel outdoor siren on the building and used the two-way audio to announce that the SWAT team was already on their way. Simultaneously, my system automatically called the dispatch center, streaming the live video. The criminals panicked and fled, but the police intercepted their car 3 blocks away. With the criminals in custody, the federal authorities moved in. The IRS executed a massive raid on Vincent's car wash and bar, seizing all of his computers, ledgers, and freezing his bank accounts. The evidence of tax evasion and money laundering I provided was so overwhelming that the judge denied Vincent bail immediately. His entire illegal empire was completely crushed, and he was locked away for good. The news of Vincent's arrest sent shockwaves through the local underworld, and the harassment against my father and me stopped instantly. We were finally safe. I focused my attention on finalizing the liquidation of my mother's assets. Through a court-ordered auction, my parents' suburban house was sold. I used the proceeds to fully reimburse my stolen savings and bought my father a beautiful new condo. My father wept with gratitude when I handed him the keys to his new home. For the first time in his life, he was completely free from my mother's toxic financial manipulation and Kevin's endless, greedy demands. We sat on his balcony, enjoying the quiet evening, completely ignoring the ghost of the family that tried to destroy us. He looked at me with deep pride, thanking me for saving his life. Meanwhile, the extended family members who had called me a monster were now facing their own financial karma. Several of them had invested heavily in Uncle Marcus's corrupt construction company, which had recently gone bankrupt following my previous legal battle against him. They were now broke and facing their own lawsuits. They tried to call me for financial help, but I blocked their numbers instantly. I became a taboo subject at their family gatherings, a terrifying figure they were too afraid to mention. They finally understood that I am not a quiet, naive tech guy they can exploit, but a dangerous, calculated force that will use the full power of technology and the law to utterly crush anyone who threatens me. I had completely purged my life of every single toxic parasite, and it felt amazing. One day I received a letter from the federal prison where my mother was serving her 5-year sentence. It was a long, handwritten letter filled with desperate apologies, claims of how hard her life in prison was, and begging me to visit her just once before she died. I held the letter over my trash can, set it on fire with my lighter, and watched it burn until it was nothing but cold, gray ash. I received a similar letter from Kevin, who was struggling to survive in a maximum security prison. He complained about the food, the violence, and how much he regretted everything he had done. He begged me to send him money for his commissary account. I folded the letter, ran it through my heavy-duty paper shredder, and threw it in the recycling bin. I owed him absolutely nothing, not even my attention. My mother and Kevin had spent years believing that their greed and manipulation were a superpower, and that my love and loyalty made me weak. They believed that because I was quiet, I would always tolerate their betrayal. They had to learn the hard way that when a quiet person finally snaps, they don't scream, they don't argue. They simply dismantle your entire life with terrifying, quiet precision. I used the remaining funds from the asset liquidation to establish a generous college scholarship fund for young students from single-parent homes who wanted to study IT security and forensics. I wanted to turn the pain of my betrayal into a powerful force for good, helping others build the same tools of protection and justice that had saved my own life. It was the perfect ending to a dark chapter. Now, the silence in my life is truly beautiful. The toxic family members who tried to bleed me dry are all sitting behind bars or living in poverty, facing the real consequences of their own actions. I protected my life, my father's future, and my hard-earned savings. If you ever find yourself facing a toxic family that takes your kindness for weakness, remember this: do not cry, do not argue, just win. Weeks turned into months, and my career continued to skyrocket. I was promoted to partner at my forensic accounting firm, earning a salary that my family could only dream of. I used my resources to invest in legitimate real estate, building a portfolio of properties that generated secure, passive income. I built a life based on absolute integrity, far away from the dark shadows of my family's endless lies. My father joined a local photography club, rediscovering a passion he had abandoned decades ago because my mother deemed it a waste of money. He looked healthier, happier, and younger than he had in 30 years. We spent our weekends traveling, exploring new cities, and building a bond that was completely untainted by toxic guilt. He was finally living the peaceful life he always deserved. I looked at the beautiful view from my new penthouse apartment, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The concrete cell where I once felt trapped by my family's expectations had vanished. I had used my mind, the law, and my skills to dismantle the structure of their abuse. I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't just sending them to prison, but living a life of absolute freedom and joy. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this: your loyalty is a precious gift, and those who abuse it do not deserve your presence. Do not let family ties blind you to the crime of systematic emotional and financial theft. When the people you love prove that they only value your wallet, close it, walk away, and build your own empire. Let them face the silence of their own choices.